This may be the most dramatic reversal in history, a seemingly winning battle, but due to a few stupid decisions, completely collapsed in just 6 minutes. At 10:20 a.m. on June 4th, Japanese Commander Nagamo was in high spirits. 4 aircraft carriers and over 200 planes. Victory was within reach, but just 6 minutes later, 3 main aircraft carriers turned into sea barbecue. The course of the Pacific War was completely changed, and this devastating failure had been triggered hours ago, had been set by the Japanese themselves. At 4 a.m., Nanyun first dispatched 108 planes to Midway Island. The US military was no longer the novice at Pearl Harbor. They evacuated personnel from the dugouts in advance, and all the planes took off, with anti-aircraft guns covered, making the Japanese bombing almost in vain. What's more, the US planes did not engage, but directly attacked the Japanese. The hunters instantly became prey. Unfortunately, the torpedo bomber pilots of the US military were novices, facing the battle-hardened Japanese Zero fighter. They were just giving their lives. After a wave of suicide attacks, almost all American planes were shot. None of the torpedoes hit. Nanyun breathed a sigh of relief. He thought the US military was nothing. However, he didn't know that this seemingly failed attack figured out the exact location of his fleet. The real killer was on the way. Since the runway of Midway was not destroyed, Nagamo decided to launch a second wave of airstrikes. He kept half of the planes with torpedoes on hand, which were originally used to guard against. But the reconnaissance plane found nothing. Nagamo concluded that the US aircraft carrier was far away, so he gave an order. The most suicidal order in history. He changed anti-ship torpedoes on the planes to ground bombs. Unexpectedly, changing the bombs. The racks need to be changed and bombs to be assembled. It would take at least. Just as the hangar was in chaos, bad news came over radio. The US aircraft carrier was found 400 away. Nanyun was confused. He was in a dilemma. Should we continue to drop bombs, or switch back to torpedoes to hit the carrier? Deputy Sean Kudo suggested, forget about the returning planes, and let them land on water. We take off immediately. All available planes strike first. But Nanyun calculated. The US military would not attack until after 10 o'clock. There was plenty, so he gave the second fatal order. First retrieve the returning planes, and unload the newly replaced bombs, and replace them with torpedoes. It was completely screwed. To save time, the mechanic piled the removed bombs and torpedoes directly piled on both sides. Suddenly, the mighty aircraft carriers turned into giant bombs, floating on the sea. Just need a match. At 9:18 a.m., the US torpedo planes launched the first official attack. Japanese Zero fighter planes showed their power again, like eagles catching chicks, and killed 15 American planes in 15 minutes. But the US commander Saki was not a pushover. He used his unique trick. Sage Cross. Let 2 planes cover each other, luring the enemy. The Zero fighter that was chasing after others' tails suddenly crashed into the muzzle of another American plane. This amazing move directly destroyed for Japanese ace planes. Although the US offensive was tragic, it successfully delayed the Japanese's reload time and exhausted the fuel and ammunition of the the defense over the Japanese fleet. There was a fatal vacuum period, but Nanyun was oblivious. He saw that the planes were about more than 200 planes, as if the goddess of victory was beckoning to him. At 10:20:50, American SBD Dauntless dive bombers emerged from the clouds like gods. At this time, the Japanese fleet had already been scattered, and the air defense firepower couldn't focus. The GL was the first to suffer. 4 bombs hit it successively, which instantly detonated the ammunition piled up on the deck. A fireball rose into the sky. The crew of the nearby Shaku didn't react yet. 3 bombs also fell from the sky, which directly blew up the carrier. Nagamo, standing on the bridge of Akagi, witnessed 2 friendly ships fall into the fire. He was secretly glad, but 3 American planes dived towards him. A bomb precisely penetrated the deck and detonated the hangar. Black flames swallowed the flagship like a flood in just 6 minutes. Shokaku Soryu, Akagi. All 3 main aircraft carriers were destroyed. Nanyun, who was once arrogant, he fled the ship in disgrace. At this time, the Japanese only had 1 carrier. Normally, he should have retreated. But Nagamo, who was desperate, decided to take a risk. He dispatched the last 18 planes to attack the US aircraft carrier Yorktown. The Japanese ace pilots made a desperate assault, and 3 bombs hit the target. The Yorktown was filled with smoke. Nanyun thought he had 1 back. He gathered 10 more torpedo planes to launch a second attack, but fate played a big joke on him. The US military's damage control ability was amazing. Before the war, they throwing all flammable materials into the sea and injected carbon dioxide into the oil pipes. Yorktown was hit by 3 bombs and quickly extinguished the fire and resumed sailing. The Japanese pilots saw from the air, thinking it was another intact aircraft carrier, so they dropped all torpedoes on it again. It's like you play games. You killed 2 people in seconds. It turned out that but only killed the same person twice. And full health enemies, nearby enemies, were waiting to take your head. US reconnaissance locked the final position of the Ryuyo. 25 bombers roared over the Japanese, were already exhausted, and were eating rice balls. 4,000-pound bombs fell from the sky. The last hope of the Japanese Navy was also gone. In fact, the Japanese failure was not accidental. Yamato's plan itself was full of flaws. He wanted to use Midway as bait to lure the US main force to fight. But in the pre-war simulation, when facing the simulation, the simulated aircraft carrier, the referee directly declared it invalid. Even twice revived the GH, this kind of victory disease made them completely ignore risks. More importantly, the US military had already opened the cheat mode. They had already deciphered the Japanese code by sending a clear code telegram about water shortage. They successfully confirming the Japanese target, the Japanese attack time, troop deployment, and the carrier's location. Commander Nimitz of the US military knew all about it. So this is not a gamble on national destiny, but a carefully planned hunt. From the moment the Japanese fleet set sail from they had already stepped into the grave.